Bron Breakker catches his mystery attacker backstage and unleashes brutal revenge. Bron Breakker just committed assault on live television, and WWE is letting him get away with it. What happened backstage wasn't wrestling, it was a beating so brutal that multiple wrestlers tried to pull Bron off, and he fought through all of them to continue the assault. And here's the part that's going to make your blood boil: the mystery attacker's identity reveals a conspiracy so deep that it involves betrayal from Bron's own family, corporate sabotage, and a plot to end his career before WrestleMania. Because WWE hasn't told you the full story. They showed you the sanitized version, the revenge moment that gets replayed in highlight packages. What they're hiding is that Bron Breakker knew who his attacker was for almost 2 weeks and systematically planned the most vicious act of retribution in modern WWE history. And the person under that mask? It's going to destroy everything you thought you knew about loyalty in professional wrestling. Let me set the scene for what actually went down backstage, because the television broadcast only captured about 30 seconds of an assault that lasted nearly 4 minutes. Bron Breakker had been terrorized for 6 weeks straight, attacked after matches, blindsided during interviews, jumped in parking lots. The mystery attacker had cost him opportunities, injured his ribs, and systematically destroyed his momentum as he was building toward what should have been the biggest WrestleMania moment of his career. WWE played it as the typical mystery storyline. Who's targeting the beast? Who has the guts to go after a Steiner? Speculation ran wild. Was it someone from NXT with a grudge? A main roster veteran who felt threatened? A returning legend with unfinished business? But here's what sources are now confirming: Bron figured out his attacker's identity almost immediately after the third attack. The fighting style was too familiar. The attack patterns were too specific. And Bron, coming from wrestling royalty, recognized techniques that only someone trained by his family would know. So instead of exposing the mystery attacker immediately, Bron did something absolutely diabolical. He played victim. He sold the attacks like he was genuinely confused and vulnerable. He gave interviews expressing frustration about not knowing who wanted to hurt him, all while planning the most brutal comeback in WWE history. Friday night backstage, Bron set the trap perfectly. He leaked through intermediaries that he'd be alone in the trainer's room after his match, icing his ribs, vulnerable and isolated. He made sure the mystery attacker heard through the backstage grapevine that security would be on the opposite side of the arena dealing with a different situation. The bait was set, and the mystery attacker took it. Cameras caught the mystery attacker approaching the trainer's room, that same tactical gear and mask we'd seen for weeks. But what the attacker didn't know was that Bron had positioned himself perfectly. The medical equipment? Moved. The ice packs? Props. Bron was waiting, completely healthy, fully prepared, and absolutely furious. The second the mystery attacker entered that room, Bron exploded. We're not talking about a wrestling match. We're talking about a legitimate mauling. Bron grabbed the attacker and threw them through an equipment table, not a gimmick table, an actual medical equipment table that shattered under the impact. The sound echoed through the entire backstage area. Then Bron ripped the mask off. And when that identity was revealed, the entire backstage area went silent. The mystery attacker was Gable Steveson, former Olympic gold medalist, WWE's Golden Boy prospect, the athlete that WWE has been protecting and positioning as a future megastar, and most devastatingly someone who trained extensively with the Steiner family during his amateur wrestling career, someone Bron considered a brother. But here's where the story gets absolutely sick. Gable wasn't acting alone. He wasn't some jealous rookie trying to make a name for himself. According to what Bron was screaming during the assault, and yes, the audio is very clear on this, Gable was paid. Someone in WWE management promised Gable Steveson Bron Breakker's WrestleMania spot if he could injure Bron badly enough to write him off television. Let that sink in. This wasn't personal rivalry. This was contract killing. This was WWE management so committed to pushing their Olympic champion that they were willing to have him systematically destroy one of their other top stars to clear a path. Bron was yelling "Who paid you?" over and over while delivering brutal strikes. Gable was trying to cover up, trying to explain, but Bron was relentless. Witnesses say Bron hit Gable with at least 15 unanswered strikes before other wrestlers arrived to try to separate them. But here's where Bron showed a level of rage that genuinely scared people backstage. When other wrestlers tried to pull him off Gable, Bron fought through them. Randy Orton, a veteran who commands respect from everyone, tried to grab Bron, and Bron shoved him so hard that Orton hit a wall. LA Knight attempted to intervene, and Bron just roared at him with such intensity that Knight actually backed off. It took 7 wrestlers to finally restrain Bron Breakker. 7. And even then, he was still trying to get back to Gable, still screaming about betrayal, about family, about promises that were made and broken. Security finally arrived, actual security, not storyline security, and the scene was absolute carnage. Medical equipment destroyed, tables broken, and Gable Steveson curled up against a wall with visible injuries that required immediate medical attention. This wasn't selling. This was real. WWE cameras captured pieces of this, but what made it to television was maybe 20% of the actual incident. The rest was deemed too violent, too chaotic, too legitimately disturbing to broadcast. But wrestlers who witnessed it have been talking, and the full story is absolutely insane. Bron had to be physically removed from the building. Not escorted, removed. He was still trying to get back to Gable even as security was forcing him toward the exit. Witnesses say he was screaming that Gable destroyed our family's trust and that the Steiners don't forget. The locker room reaction is unprecedented. This isn't the typical wrestlers got into a fight situation. This is a complete fracturing of backstage trust and relationships. Because if what Bron was screaming is true, if someone in management actually orchestrated these attacks, then everyone is questioning who they can trust. Veterans are reportedly furious at management. The idea that WWE would pit their own talent against each other, would actually pay one wrestler to injure another, violates every unspoken rule of locker room culture. Wrestling is built on trust. You're trusting your opponent not to legitimately hurt you, trusting creative to book you fairly, trusting management to look out for everyone's career. If that trust is broken at the management level, the entire system collapses. Younger wrestlers are terrified. If WWE is willing to sacrifice Bron Breakker, a third-generation star from one of wrestling's most legendary families, to push Gable Steveson, then nobody is safe. Your position, your push, your WrestleMania moment, all of it can be taken away at any second and given to whoever management decides is more valuable. And here's the most disturbing part: multiple wrestlers are now questioning whether their own injuries over the past year were legitimate accidents or orchestrated attacks similar to what happened to Bron. Paranoia is spreading through the locker room like wildfire. The Steiner family is legendary in professional wrestling. Rick Steiner, Scott Steiner, multiple generations of championship pedigree. And the Steiners are known for two things: incredible in-ring ability and fierce family loyalty. You don't cross the Steiner family without consequences. Gable Steveson crossed that line. He trained with them, ate meals at their homes, was treated like family, and he betrayed that for a WrestleMania payday and management's favor. Sources close to the Steiner family say that Scott Steiner, Bron's uncle, the man known as Big Papa Pump, has already made calls to WWE management demanding answers. And if you know anything about Scott Steiner, you know he doesn't make quiet, diplomatic requests. He makes demands, and he doesn't care about corporate politics or business relationships. Rick Steiner, Bron's father, is reportedly flying to WWE headquarters to have face-to-face conversations with decision-makers. The Steiners want to know who authorized these attacks, who promised Gable that he could take Bron's spot, and what WWE is going to do to make this right. The family isn't just angry, they're mobilized. And when a wrestling family with that much history, that much credibility, and that many industry connections decides to go to war with WWE management, it creates political chaos that extends far beyond one storyline. Wrestling Twitter is experiencing a nuclear meltdown. The video clips that did make it online, even the sanitized versions, are going absolutely viral. Hashtags like #BronBreaker, #GableSteveson exposed, and #WWE conspiracy are trending worldwide. This isn't just wrestling fans, mainstream sports accounts are covering this story. Gable Steveson's reputation is destroyed. The Olympic hero narrative? Gone. The future face of WWE? Finished. He's now permanently branded as the guy who betrayed a brother, who took a payoff to injure a colleague, who chose corporate favor over loyalty and integrity. But here's what's fascinating: public opinion is overwhelmingly on Bron's side. Even people who typically criticize excessive violence are saying that Gable deserved exactly what he got. That betrayal at that level justifies the brutal response. That Bron showed restraint by only attacking Gable instead of going after everyone involved in the conspiracy. WWE's social media team is in full damage control mode. They're trying to spin this as a worked shoot, as an intense storyline that got a little too real, but everything's fine and tune in next week. But nobody's buying it. The emotion was too genuine. The violence was too unscripted. The locker room reactions are too chaotic. Here's the question that's eating at everyone: who in WWE management authorized this? Because Gable Steveson is a 24-year-old with minimal wrestling experience. He doesn't have the political capital or the industry knowledge to orchestrate this conspiracy alone. Someone with power promised him Bron's WrestleMania spot. Names being speculated include certain executives who have long favored amateur wrestling credentials over professional wrestling pedigree. People who believe Olympic gold medals translate to main event star power more than family legacy and in-ring psychology. But here's what makes this absolutely terrifying: if those people are willing to sacrifice Bron Breakker, who else are they willing to sacrifice? Which other wrestlers are currently being positioned for accidents or mysterious attacks because management wants to clear space for their favorites? The implications extend far beyond one assault. This reveals a potentially systemic problem in how WWE operates behind the scenes, where talent isn't protected, where careers are disposable, where loyalty means nothing against corporate agenda. What happens to Bron Breakker now? Technically, he committed assault on company property. He injured another contracted performer. He defied security and fought through multiple people trying to stop him. Under normal circumstances, that's grounds for immediate termination. But these aren't normal circumstances. Bron was defending himself against a conspiracy to end his career. He was responding to weeks of attacks that WWE management apparently orchestrated, and he has the full support of his legendary family backing him up. WWE is in an impossible position. Fire Bron, and you admit the conspiracy was real, plus you face the wrath of the Steiner family and a locker room that largely supports him. Keep him employed, and you're essentially endorsing vigilante justice and violence against other performers. The smart money says WWE tries to turn this into a storyline: Bron versus management, the anti-authority rebel fighting against corporate corruption. But that only works if Bron is willing to play along. And right now, Bron seems more interested in real justice than storyline justice. Bron Breakker caught his mystery attacker, and what followed wasn't a wrestling angle, it was legitimate retribution for a legitimate betrayal. The assault was brutal. The conspiracy behind it was worse. And the implications for WWE's backstage culture are absolutely devastating. This story exposes the darkest aspects of professional wrestling: the politics, the betrayals, the corporate manipulation of human beings who trust their employers to protect them. Gable Steveson made a choice that destroyed his credibility forever. WWE management created conditions where that choice was possible. And Bron Breakker delivered consequences that nobody will forget. Where do you stand? Was Bron justified in the level of violence he unleashed? Should WWE be held accountable for orchestrating attacks on their own talent? Sound off in the comments, because this conversation is explosive right now. If this video gave you the full story that WWE is trying to hide, hit that like button and share this everywhere. Subscribe to Wrestling News CC, because this situation is evolving and will cover every single development. The mystery attacker has been caught, beaten, and exposed, but the real story is the conspiracy that